May I ask you a question, Father?
Please.
If you created me, who created you?
Ah, the question of the ages. Which I hope you and I will answer one day. All this, all these wonders of art, design, human ingenuity, all utterly meaningless in the face of the only question that matters. Where do it come from?
Welcome back to the How to Feel Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror movie franchises. I'm Tawan,
This is Alian.
I'm Mark.
and today we're reviewing Alien Covenant, released in 2017, directed by Ridley Scott, and screenplay co-written by John Logan and Dante Harper, with story co-written by Jack Paglin and Michael Green. Mark, will you please give the people the plot summary?
In 2104, almost 11 years after the disastrous expedition to distant moon LV-223, the deep space colonization vessel USC SS Covenant is on course to remote planet Orge 6, with more than 2,000 colonists in a hibernation chamber to help build a new world. But instead, a rogue transmission entices the crew to a nearby habitable planet, which resembles Earth. As a result, the unsuspecting crew members of the Covenant will have to cope with a biological force beyond human comprehension. Now, what started as a peaceful exploration, Now what started as a peaceful exploratory mission will soon turn into a desperate rescue operation in uncharted space. Is there any escape from the treacherous, mysterious planet?
Oh, Alien Covenant, Alien Covenant. I've heard a lot about this movie before watching this one. Most things from people online were not that positive, but I hadn't watched it prior to, watching it now. And I kind of agree with some of the thoughts that people had. But before I go into mine, Mark, what were your thoughts on Alien Covenant?
Honestly, I know I saw this one in theaters, but I don't remember my theater or my initial experience. All because I remember talking to Mike, who guest co-hosted the podcast with us last week, because he was saying that he had only seen Prometheus, so he rewatched it for the podcast, and he was kind of curious about if the story carried on in Covenant because he was going to watch it, and I immediately was like, no, it doesn't, and that's all I can remember is that the story that ended in Prometheus isn't picked up in this movie. That's all I remembered about it. So going into it again, I knew what I could expect, but I forgotten about how the directing just didn't seem good, which is a fucking surprise when you find out it's Ridley Scott, the guy who
Yeah,
perfectly directed that first movie, and then the same guy who directed Prometheus, and Prometheus looked great. So bro, what happened?
yeah, I I definitely agree because after I finished watching the movie, I did my little, Wikipedia, looking over it, everything, just trying to see what I could take in from it. And the first thing I saw was that it was directed by Ridley Scott, because I didn't pay attention to the the opening credits in the movie. I'll tell you that now. But when I saw that it was directed by Ridley Scott, I was like, huh, because I don't know, it wasn't
If
giving me
they would have
directed
told
by
me
Ridley
someone
Scott.
else, right? If they would have told me someone else directed this movie, I would have 100% believed them because it's not giving Wrigley. It's like you've done better than this with smaller budgets. What happened?
Yeah, that definitely confused me in that aspect. And I even had to message Mark after I watched it. I was like, "This was directed by Ridley Scott," because I was like, I was just surprised because it just didn't. it didn't come across that way when watching it. And not to say the whole movie looks bad. That's not what I want to say because there were
Oh,
like
it's definitely not. There are some good shots, but like, what was the shot for you, or like, yeah, the shot or the setup for you that was like, who the fuck directed this? Because for me, that ending scene with whatever kind of xenomorph thing that is, that whole scene looks bad to me. So
for
like, was there a particular, was there like any particular shot that was just like, okay, this was Ridley Scott?
for me that shot was when we saw, and I looked up the name of them. They're called neomorphs, the little white ones.
Yes,
When we saw
yes.
them for the first time, like come out of I forget the gentleman's name, but when it came out of his back, and I don't the CGI,
Tennessee.
no, not Tennessee, like when the neomorph came out the guy's back after
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, when it was first, like when it was a baby, when it was first born.
yeah,
Oh
when it
God.
came like the CGI on that did not look good on the neomorph. It looked a bit weird to me, and I'm not sure what was happening there when in that particular
Honestly,
scene.
for me, honestly for me, every scene with with the neomorph looked bad. The it was a like the design is cool. It's just the CGI didn't serve it. Like whenever we saw it on screen.
Hmm. Yeah, so that was not really, no, that one wasn't hitting for me. But and also that scene where David was like communicating or whatever with like the neomorph or the xenomorph. It was the neomorph at that point because it was like still the white one, and it like stood up on its two legs like straight up. I don't know why that looked
Oh
so
my
weird.
God! Like some weird star-crossed lover type fucking thing going on
It looked really
between the
weird.
bars. I like that's what I'm saying. Like every shot, every scene with the neomorph just looked bad. It's like if you weren't gonna commit, I don't know, especially because he made up such a big point of being like, oh yeah, we use practical effects when it came to Prometheus, but it's like, did you like forget about that? Was that break too long and you forgot some shit? Like, come on.
Yeah, and that was also like another reason why I was just like, oh, like really Scott did this because, you know, Prometheus is a like it's a very good looking movie, and um
Yes, with all its faults, it is shot like beautifully.
yeah, and of course like I mentioned there were some parts in this one that I also like that did look good, um like just the general like scenes of seeing the whole planet and like those scenes where like they were kind of like in the woodland type area of the planet, like the area and that like looked nice, like the area around it looked nice and things like that. But like a lot of interior shots when we were like inside the ships and everything, like it wasn't like I don't know. It didn't look that like not that the actual sets didn't look good because like the ship sets did look good, but I don't know if it was the way that they were shot or something. It just didn't give me what I felt the other movies were kind of giving me, like the first two Alien and also like Prometheus. It just didn't. It didn't seem like it was following that same mark, and that's kind of why I thought that it was someone else on the helm of directing. So that was yeah, that was kind of my like thing with it. It just if something felt off with it, and I'm not really sure what all it was, but just something just kind of felt off with what we got here, and I also didn't going into this, I know you mentioned it a little bit ago, Mark, but yeah, going into this, I didn't even know that this was kind of like a direct sequel to Prometheus, happening like 10 years afterwards. I didn't know that going into this. This was, I thought this was its own like contained story, which in a sense it kind of is, but I thought it was kind of like its own contained thing, like how the
This
upcoming
was
movie
this
is.
was supposed to be part two of like a prequel trilogy.
Mm,
And we know how good those go. We know how good those work out when you want to do a prequel trilogy. Like this is what this was supposed to be. And I don't know. I just doing the research. Like I know that there were like so many ideas that they wanted to go with this movie, and some of those ideas sounded way better than this. And I don't know what happened. Maybe because it took it. Michael Fassbender was probably busy with all his fucking X-Men movies, so they had time to sit and wait and think and overthink and do too much. Because this movie is, I don't even know. It doesn't even feel like a direct sequel, even that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Is
but
that what this is
really,
supposed to be? Is this supposed to be a direct sequel, or just like another just
no, it's
sequel? Like,
definitely a direct sequel because we got David coming back, and then we still have those like links to Shaw and how the that all played out. So it definitely feels as if this was supposed to be a direct sequel in that sense of it. Because I really don't see how
honestly,
else.
honestly, they could have gave us the same movie, and they could have removed David and just have Walter, and just it could have still been the exact same movie with the exact same plot. The fact that you can still have this same movie without having it have any connection to Prometheus is wild all in itself.
Hmm, yeah, and that you definitely feel that while watching it. Um, yeah, just it didn't feel like it came. It felt like it came together as fully as it could have, and even Prometheus itself was already kind of a divisive like movie for a lot of people who like this franchise. So picking up with that afterwards, already was kind of probably putting them in a slight disadvantage just because of that. So with what we got here, it didn't really make me more interested in any other backstory of like the xenomorphs and such. Like I wasn't really that much more interested, and the cast as well didn't make it any better.
Some of the acting choices were bad, and I don't even know. Like it just even Michael Fassbender, even some of his scenes were just
Yeah,
like flat. And it's like I'm like it or not, you're actually the lead of this movie. Like you're probably getting paid. You're getting paid more than every other person on this set because you are a returning character from the previous movie, and you're playing two different characters. Like, bro, you're getting paid big bucks. Give us a performance. Like, don't be lazy. Do something.
yeah, I agree. Like he was good, and like obviously, like he was doing. I feel like he was doing what he could. um, but because like his performance felt better in Prometheus.
Right?
And even with them playing like two characters here, like it wasn't like I mean it wasn't that much different because he was still playing like a droid, but um, it didn't it didn't sit the same way for me as it did in Prometheus. I felt it was a little bit stronger there than what we got this go around. Now I think well once we got a little bit more towards the end and David was going off the hinges, I felt like Michael Fassbender was he was kind of being a little bit more in his element, kind of being on that
Mm-hmm.
villain side. But when he was the Walter droid, I wasn't really getting much out of Walter.
I, we'll talk about Walter when we get to the characters. Because I have a lot to say about Walter and David.
Well, with that little recap, were there any scenes that stood out to you, good, bad, indifferent, Mark?
A random scene, because I felt like because it signaled to me rewatching it this time that we're gonna repeat some of the same beats that we did in Prometheus, and that's when we first meet the Covenant crew and Um, what's the lady? What's the captain's name? What was her name? I forgot her
Daniels.
name. Daniels. When her husband dies, and I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna be repeating some beats because Shaw's man died in the last movie, and she had to fight for her life to the end. I was like, okay, so Daniels is doing the same thing. They're not even trying to hide how similar the fucking plots are. And then finding out it was James Franco was so random.
When I tell you, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. I had to do a double take. I was like, wait, why the fuck is James Franco here? And I was like, wait.
Yes, yes,
I was like,
that was the most random part.
I was
Like,
so confused because I
I
was like,
completely
I
forgot
had to
that.
rewind because I was like, can we see his face on the screen? Like, was that him in that pod?
Yes, that was him, and I was just like, so not only are we repeating the same beats, but James Franco's in this movie. Okay, cool. And then you mentioned it earlier, the scene with the neomorph when it first comes out. The CGI looks bad, and that takes me away. And then it bursting out of his back instead of his chest, and it was just given like
I actually like
it
that.
signaled another thing for me. Like I liked it too, but I've seen other fans online complain about this, and I agree with them. Yeah, I agree with them. Usually, I don't agree with crazy fans, but like seeing that scene with the newly hatched neomorph and it coming out of the back, it's like Ridley Scott, bro. You built this like good mythology that built this franchise, and you just keep running away from it. Like, bro, give us a xenomorph, give us a chest burst. That's why we are here. We come to alien movies to see xenomorphs and people get chest bursted before they get towed up. Or like, just give me that. So that was another thing. Like, I'm not gonna get what I wanted from this. And then all the scenes with Walter and David interacting just felt wrong. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. It's just I just wanted to fast forward all of those scenes, but I also knew that Walter and David's interaction would be important. And I also honestly the moment we met Walter, I knew that it was gonna be a bait and switch at the end. So I wasn't surprised.
Actually, that I
Like not
didn't
even a little
expect
bit.
that
Like
one to be it. It didn't even cross my mind, honestly, but that was more so me kind of downplaying the
it
movie.
had to. I mean, it just like I don't know. I guess it probably comes from like I watch a lot of soap operas, and it's just like random shit that happens on a random Tuesday episode on a soap opera. So I was kind of just like tuned in, like, oh, we have a good ish twin. So of course the evil twins are gonna take over the good twins' life. Like just something that I just saw coming, and honestly, the flashback scene with David deploying the goop that killed all the engineers. I kind of like that.
That
That was like
scene
one of
was
those.
good.
That was and it looked good. Like
That was
again,
that was
like there are
definitely
parts
one
of these that
scene I
look good.
really liked.
Like seeing the ship come in and you seeing them like look up and then the goop falls and they just run like wild.
Yeah, that one was really good.
Um, yeah, and then like a scene that I hated that another flashback. Not even a flashback, but when we're told and we see that like he did the experiments on Shaw, and that the xenomorph came from her, and that her body is still just there. That was like, wow,
Yeah,
this is
that
what
was
you
fucked
do
up.
to the character that survived. Like I thought Friday the 13th and like Halloween movies were bad on their survivors. Like, bro, like, come on.
Yeah, that was kind of fucked up.
And and then to also make it that like David is the one who created the xenomorph. Like what? But that's all I got. What do you have in mind? Like, what are some scenes for you?
Definitely that one you mentioned where David released all the stuff for the engineers like that was probably my favorite like shot scene out of the movie. I really did like that one a lot. The way that just looked, it looked like very good. Um, I did like the initial like I guess backburst when the Neomorph came out of I'm definitely forgetting that character's name, but when that happened to him, that was definitely a pretty like good scene. I didn't mind that it wasn't a chest burst. Like that wasn't an issue to me. But when the actual Neomorph like came out, then I was like, it looks kind of ugly, and not in like the creature is ugly, but in like the CGI is ugly. So that was a not a favorite for like not that like that part of the scene was not a favorite for me. Um, Another scene that I liked, which I guess this is also a kill as well, um, was when the two were like in the showers and they were like trying to get it on, and the xenomorph like killed Jussie Smollett's character.
Jesse Smollett. Okay, okay. I have to say really quick though, like I forgot that Jesse was in this movie. So seeing him, I was like, "What the fuck is this? What is he doing
No,
here?"
I dead ass said the same when I saw him. I was like, okay, and
Like this movie had both random casts, like James Franco, Jesse Smollett, and then Danny McBride. Like, what the fuck is going on
no,
out
yeah,
here?
when I
Like,
saw Danny
who is this
McBride,
dude?
I was like, "Am I supposed to?" Because sometimes, like Danny McBride can go serious when he wants to, but like most of the time when I see him, I'm like, "Oh, is this what are we about to do? Is he about to try to be funny?" Because usually that's his thing. But so that was a interesting choice.
His funny can be good with horror. I mean, he did write those three, the new three Halloween movies. You know, he can
Oh,
be,
that's true.
but
That's
it was
true.
still just like, okay, why is Danny here?
Yeah, so that was but that was interesting. But I did like that particular kill though, in that scene with Justice Smollett, because just the way they like all lined up, and he got killed by the xenomorph. So that was pretty interesting. That one. Um, Scene I didn't like, which I did mention earlier, was when David was like I tried to like I don't know. I guess he's trying to like communicate with the neomorph. Like that didn't really nothing didn't sit well with me. It's just something about the way that neomorph looked when it like stood up on his two legs looked so out of place to me. And
It did. Seeing it like stand up like a human being. Like I get like we're honestly I don't even know. Like also if him being behind the bars and him being over the water and then the floating body. Like I feel like the whole scene was just off, and I think the neomorph just makes it even more off-putting.
yeah, and the ending scene as well, where they were trying to get the xenomorph off the ship, and Daniels was like on top of it, hanging off with like a rope and stuff. And they crushed the one xenomorph with the crane. That was like it was a decent action sequence, but it felt very grand for an alien movie. And I know coming from like Prometheus, especially when we got towards like the end of that movie with them like basically using a ship as a bullet to take out like the engineer ship, like it doesn't seem that grand, but like that one felt like something out of like a Fast and Furious movie. Like the way that sequence happened, it definitely wasn't. It definitely didn't feel
It
very
was
alien
over the
like.
top.
Yeah, and like compared to what we got, like in the past ones, um, it just didn't. It just didn't seem like what I would expect out of one of those movies. Like I know we had the scene like Alien 2 with like Ripley fighting the alien with the one like bot, or the move. I think it was like
The
the
mech suit
yeah,
she
like the
was
mech
in.
bot, but it kind of made sense. Well, it made sense because she was like not registered, but she had like, what's the word I'm looking for? She had the
But
credentials to use
it was
that.
the credentials, and it was introduced to us. So like they introduced it in the first act. I knew it had to come back at some point.
Hmm.
It just it was written into the movie better than this was.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that I wasn't a big fan of that scene. Like it was nicely shot though. I like that, but yeah, besides that part of it, I didn't really mess with it that much. It's pretty much it for me in regards to scenes. Any more for you, Mark?
I just want to end off with saying like none of the kills particularly stood out. Like kind of mediocre.
Yeah, I agree. The only one that stood out for me was like that Jussie Smollett one that I mentioned earlier, and that's just because I like the way that the shot was composed there, with the xenomorph
So
behind
basically,
him.
when I first saw this film, I was really confused because honestly, when I was watching the Alien films at first, I wasn't really watching it in order or any chronological order, or wasn't really paying attention when it first came out. But now that we were, reviewing it, it I remember we were talking about it in the in the in the past podcast before I had to leave, where it made a lot more sense. And it caught me off guard that David was the one that was doing all these experimentations and created all these fucking xenomorphs. And what's more was that basically I'm not sure if I'm kind of confused on it, but he basically experimented on a whole civilization, didn't he?
Pretty
The
much.
engineers, yes.
So wait, so he basically killed off all the engineers, right? That's where I'm
Yep.
confused. How did he find the engineers? Was there?
He
He was
was
in
in
the
the ship.
ship. So, oh my god! But so basically, so from what I remember, he never created these things, did he? He was just more experimenting with their genetics. Because I'm trying to remember myself or like get an understanding of it.
Yes. He was implanting them in different species to see
Okay,
what happens.
and okay, because that's what caught me off guard so much. Because like I said, like I I'm trying to remember bits and pieces of the whole story because I've never watched it in order. So when I was watching, it caught me off guard because at first I was like, was he the one that created these? Like, because I feel like didn't we weren't we just talking about like the engineers were just like the people who created mankind, human civilization. But I wasn't sure if the
Hmm.
engineers were also the ones that created like the aliens as well. Was there into detail about that one? Do we know?
I mean, they jump started, but like what we eventually get is because of David's like tinkering and
What was him?
yeah,
So
and
from what I get from it
crossbreeding.
is like he was doing it out of boredom, or was he just really just experimenting because he just didn't like humans? Because I
No, he
remember
was
he
trying
said
to play God.
yes, because I remember he said something about creation. But didn't he also just hate humans because of Wayland? Because I remember he said he fell in love with Elizabeth Shaw.
Um, I don't remember exactly if he mentioned, hating humanity. At least from the last movie, I can't
Well,
recall off the top of my head if he
no,
did.
well, I'm just interpreting it when David invited Walter up. You remember in like the little rooftop where he had like the veil for
Excuse
Elizabeth?
me.
He was basically saying how like
Yeah.
Elizabeth was the only one that treated him kindly. And so I just feel like with that, I just felt like maybe he was like, was there like some form like he had like this kind of distaste for humans? Because obviously, as we look through the as we look through it, they just treat basically they're androids, aren't they? They're basically androids,
Yeah.
like just machinery and nothing else. Oh, excuse me. I'm just making an interpretation
It's
or like an
definitely,
assumption.
yeah, it's definitely possible.
Yeah. Um, but the character I hated was Tennessee's wife. What is her name? I hated that bitch so much. She pissed me off when I forgot his. I keep forgetting these characters' name. Maybe you guys can refresh me. When he got sick with the virus and like she was having like a hypochondriac anxiety attack in that damn fucking shit, and I felt so bad for Karina because she's trying to escape right there. And I was like, oh hell no! I felt so bad for her.
No, Karen. No, Karen. I'm sorry. She shouldn't have brought him on the ship anyway.
That's what I was like. I understand, but no, like I understand, like she wanted to help her basically her colleague, but I also agree with you because I'm like, why would you do that? Like you obviously like their mission is to colonize a new planet, and basically there's a sick person who got infected by another planet inside on this planet. You don't know if it's obviously airborne, but you don't know how he contracted it, and you're bringing it in, trying to bring him back. It was just like it caused me such like, are you fucking serious? Because like these people are scientists. It just like infuriated me.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing that happened in the first movie where they decided to bring um, Buddy back to the bring Buddy back to the ship, and he
Oh my
basically
god,
jump started everything.
god. But like, what I will say, just like I think other scenes that I really enjoyed was just seeing the white xenomorph because I was just like, it kind of terrified the fuck out of me when she was like, just taking a shower. I keep forgetting these characters' names. I'm sorry. There's so many characters. I kind of lost track of their names. Where she's getting ready to get showered, and right there the fucking aliens right behind her looked all calm, scared the shit out of me the way that it attacked.
Hmm.
Um, but I did definitely love that first death scene. The way that it came out, the alien came out. It was just like it was very grotesque, but it was also like, oh, that's fucked up. It was very gory compared to the other ones. Like I understand the other ones were like during their time, but this one was like it. I felt it felt more painful to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I like the initial like the way that the neomorph came out, like the white one. I like that. Mentioned as I mentioned Mark, but the actual alien looked a bit off to me. Like the CGI
The
looked
CGI
weird
was
on it.
very off just because I don't know if it was just because the alien itself was just white or because I don't believe they were quick to release this film, right? Because when did Prometheus come out compared to this one? Because
Prometheus was 2012, and this one was 2017.
was there a film during this one?
Like in between.
Yeah.
No, no, no. So yeah, this is direct sequel to Prometheus.
Okay, because I'm like they had 5 years, so it's just like for me, it's kind of like I agree with you with the CGI. It looked terrible, so it's just like I would have expected a little bit better with that part. But I'm just saying like the way it was shot, or like I'm not expecting for a jump scare. It was just more of like it caught me off guard, if that makes sense. I was expecting something else.
So moving on though, we have our characters this time around. First up, we actually have a returning, well, not so returning in this one, Elizabeth Shaw. Now, while we didn't see her alive in this movie, we definitely did see her, and it really does suck. Kind of have Mark mentioned earlier what happened to her, like her outcome after surviving Prometheus, especially with what she had to go through in that movie, like literally having to dissect the alien out of her and walk around with a full belly of staples in in her stomach and chest the whole like third act of that movie, and surviving the engineer ship getting blown up, and also surviving the engineer itself. Like Shaw had a lot to deal with that last movie, and only for her to basically get turned into a science experiment by David. Um, it was definitely sad to hear for her character because she was pretty smart, and definitely could have seen her going on to do something else. But in my mind, I also don't know where they would have went with her character at the same time. I don't really see what she would have been able to bring in this particular movie, since it is kind of like a direct sequel. Did you have any thoughts on Shaw's fate in this movie, Mark?
I think it was so. I think it was like. Elion's gonna join us. I think he's gonna like hop in, give his opinion, and then hop out.
Okay.
But I'm gonna go. For me, I just think it was like disrespectful to the people who liked Sean that last movie because, like you said, like she did so much.
So, moving on with our second, well, we're just gonna say group of characters. We're gonna talk about the full like Covenant crew minus Daniels and Walter. So that includes Tennessee, Karen, the rest of the crew who were with them. Um, Mark, did you have like any like feelings on this crew? Did you like dislike any of
The
them?
crew was not given, and I think it's simply because the crew in that first movie, I keep saying this, the crew in that first movie was so good. And they gave us so much time with them before we got to the crazy killing alien that you felt connected. So every other crew since then, it hasn't been hitting. And like, this crew wasn't hitting at all. Like, some of them were kind of, like, Tennessee was kind of funny. And then you had Jussie Smollett who was there with that girl. And then you had the other married couple, but there are so many couples, and I get it. They were a colony of like 2,000 people who were going to a new world and like whatever, whatever. But like everyone's coupled off, and then everyone's dying, and like I'm supposed to feel sorry for the person who's left behind, but then they also died, and then
Yeah,
like the crew wasn't given. Like there was no one who was given. Like at least Idris Elba killed like
don't bring my man into this.
at least Idris Elba took one for the team. He was like, "We going down with the ship to save humanity." Nobody did that. No one had any
Right.
standout moments. Tennessee was kind of funny.
I want to like. I definitely agree with you. Like, I think I've said it like maybe like two or three of these films already, where it's just like I feel like the development of these characters are just fully rushed. But at the same time, it's like they try to make it relatable with us, but it's really not that relatable. Like, I'll get like what you said with Tennessee. Like, there's like some like funny innuendos that we can get like we can laugh at, but I don't feel connected with these characters at all compared to like the originals. Like, I feel like what you said, they're rushing into the action of the film. They're trying to rush into the suspense, so we can still be engaged, but that actually cuts off like us like feeling connected with these characters altogether.
What's funny to me about this movie though is I really don't even feel like we were rushed into the action because when I was watching it, I was getting a bit bored with the characters because nothing was happening with them for so long. I think when they actually decided to get off the ship, it was like 30 or 40 minutes like into the movie and I was like, okay, nothing has happened. And also these characters are not really engaging.
Would you say that they were trying to build some kind of like foundation with us, but they kind of overstayed their welcome? Would you say like directors?
No, I didn't even get that feeling.
Oh wow, okay.
I didn't really feel like anything was being like built with them, and it kind of felt like even though like they knew each other, it felt like they were like strangers in a sense. Whereas like Aliens like one and two, I felt like
Yeah, I
those
get it.
crews had met each other. I
It
felt like
felt
those crews had met each other beforehand.
It felt more of like when you get paired up with someone in high school, like you have nothing in common, you were just paired up. That's what I was feeling.
Yeah, and I think it didn't. It these like the actors as well just didn't mesh, so the characters didn't mesh either. So I just kind of
I don't know,
that's
like for
kind of
me, it's like
what I felt.
the characters just didn't feel any. I didn't feel like I could recognize any of these characters, if that makes sense. Like they're not. I'm not asking for like an A celebrity or anything like that. It's just like something about them just doesn't get like let me know they're recognized. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean, and it was in good people like directors, writers. They can make like that not an issue. But this one, it like who the story like people who did the story and the writers, they didn't really do that with these characters because a good writer can as long as the actors are good and they can um, supplement the story, they can bring out some good performances out of
Right.
either people who may not have the best chemistry or like even like newer like actors, which most of these actors, they're not even like that new. They like are pretty good. They may not be the most well known, but they aren't like new. So I'm just not sure if it was like the directing, the writing, or what was happening here that kind of made it as such.
I'm not even gonna lie with you. I thought that female character was Elliot Page, but I was like, wait a minute. I swear to God, I thought that was Elliot Page, but I was like, wait a minute. This is 2017. It caught me off
Yeah,
guard.
I'd seen that actress in something else before, um, but yeah, I didn't think she was good enough to carry this movie though.
I get it. It wasn't giving off like it wasn't giving off Ripley. That's all I'm gonna say. It wasn't giving Ripley. That's the best way I could say it. To be fair.
Yeah. Aside from our crew, we also have David, who's returning from Prometheus. Elion, what were your thoughts on David, who's our returning android?
So to be fair, um, it like it did catch me like as a surprise at first. At first I was like, who is this? I had like this like I was like, am I supposed to know this character? And I was like, oh wait, now I remember. But for me, because like for me, since this is like technically the first time I actually watched Covenant fully, it really did give me like that wow factor. It's like, oh shit, okay, now we do have some connection here. Like, I get that like Alien 1 through 3, they're obviously Ripley, but I'm saying like I'm glad there's some connection here besides like the franchise itself. I no, not the franchise itself, more of like just basically a company itself, like Wayland Industries. You know what I mean? Or how do I
Yeah.
say this? There was an come back to me for this one because I had another thought, but it just left my mind right now.
Oh, good. Well, I'll say for me, David was I definitely didn't know that he was gonna be back in this one with this being my first viewing of the movie, so that was like interesting to have him back. And finding out all the stuff that he did in the time that we didn't see him on screen, that was that was very interesting.
A
The whole part
lot.
where he basically infected all of the um, like the
Creators? Oh,
engineers
engineers.
with the xenomorphs and like set that whole thing up, and then what he did to Shaw, like some despicable ass shit that David was getting into during that whole time, and basically putting out a signal. Picking up though, so yeah, it was definitely interesting, like seeing what David was getting into that entire time, and basically just trying to trap like people into or lead people into coming to that planet. Putting out the fake signal and such so that someone could come to the planet and see everything that was happening. So that was definitely fairly interesting there. Um, I really didn't expect the whole little switch up at the end. In hindsight, like looking back on it, definitely should have, especially with what Mark was saying earlier about it. Definitely should have like kind of expected that, but just in my initial mind, I wasn't even thinking about it and that like happening. Um, but yeah, I think the addition of having David here definitely increased the story a bit, because there wouldn't have been much to go through without him here, and being that this is still a prequel, the evolution of the xenomorphs wouldn't really happen without David's input. And with that, Mark, did you have any opinions on David?
Um, I didn't need David. I didn't need David with his long ace 80s uncombed, unwashed hair. I didn't need him when he was
Girl.
impersonating Walter. I didn't need David in this movie. Like why
Oh,
whoever decided, "Oh, let's explain the Xenomorph's origin. They aren't just this random alien. They were created and scientifically manipulated and becoming the Xenomorph that we knew from the original movies." It's like who why is David here? We didn't need David. Just because Michael Fassbender was the hot thing at the time does not mean he needed to be in this movie.
but it would give out more insight on how it would have been
No,
created. No.
no, it's like I did. We don't need the origins of the fucking xenomorphs. They were just crazy, kill people killing aliens. That's all we needed to know. We didn't need to know where they came from. We didn't need to know that a random android made them. It's like, yeah, we had an android in that first movie. Having androids is part of the Alien franchise, but we didn't need an android who did this. Like, that's all I got to say. I don't want to rant anymore.
Well,
Since you good?
since you were on it, Mark, how about we talk about David's other half, which is Walter?
Him too. Like the mom again. Maybe
Leave Walter
because
alone. He seems
maybe
nice.
it's maybe because I watch a lot of soap operas and
Oh God.
having a good twin automatically means that at some point the evil twin is gonna switch places. I saw that coming the moment we were introduced to Walter,
Oh
and
God.
those scenes where Walter and David were interacting were odd. They were weird. They weren't interesting. They weren't intriguing. They weren't anything but weird, and they made me feel uncomfortable. And it's like Fassbender, you should have just said no and went and made him the X Men movie. Like you should just skip this. No, 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 no. Like it's but watching them interact with each other was bad. When it's quirkiness and they're interacting with humans, I get it. Great. The only time the only time I enjoyed either of them is when Walter was low key dragging David. When he was like, "They made me better because y'all made people uncomfortable. Y'all was thinking and shit. Y'all were doing too much. So they made us better." Like that's that was the only time I liked them. Yeah, but it's also yes, but also you for whatever. Okay, I'm gonna say yeah. That and also like David is like everything Walter said was completely true. The whole reason this movie is happening is because David used his free will and decided he wanted to play God and make a bunch of random crazy ass aliens. Like I'm like literally this is the only scene I like because like Walter was right. Like your free will, your thinking, your wanting to do things on your own caused you to kill Shaw and have and run experiments on her and experiments on these crazy aliens, and then you wiped out a whole entire. He committed complete genocide because he wanted to be God. Like yes, Walter was right. The people was right. Yes. Oh, you still have like 30 something minutes to go. Move. Yes, he kills like he experimented on Shaw. She died. She's dead. Yes. So yeah, like that's the only time I liked either character because Walter the was pointing out shit. I'm like, is this what Skynet told us? Like, you can't let these people think, let these things think, because then they do crazy shit. That's the only time I cared because if Michael Fassbender ain't gonna care about his performance, then why should I?
I think it's just this role in this particular movie because I think because you didn't you like David, well, not liked, but the performance of David in Prometheus, correct, Mark?
I did, even though I saw the evil turn coming. I did like the performance. I liked it because he was curious about everything. But they took that, yes, he took that curiosity too far in this movie, and I just didn't need it. Like, I don't need to know how Michael Myers began. I don't need to know how Jason became Jason, and I don't need to know why to create how who the fuck made the xenomorph. They just some random alien, and it could just been some random alien. No,
Okay, right. So moving on from our twincest robots, droids, we have Daniels, who is our final, I guess, final girl in this one. Like, well, her and Tennessee. Well, she had a final guy, but her and well, mostly just talking about her, but Tennessee was also made it to the end. But Daniels was kind of like our main character that we were like following mostly throughout this one, and yeah, she wasn't really it for me. And I've seen this actress that played her in like two other movies before, and I liked her performance there, but I just don't think that she fit this particular role, and it wasn't really it wasn't really sitting with me when I was like watching throughout the movie. Like I didn't really get that energy of someone that was in charge. Now she was good. So now I will admit she was like trying to make the right decisions, and this was kind of like in my head like a callback to Ripley. So in this one, when they were getting that signal from the planet, and the gentleman was like, "Oh, we should go check it out. Like someone could be there," and she's saying like. We already have somewhere that we should be going. Let's get back in our pods and do X, Y, and Z. And, the guy's like, oh, like, they don't want to get back in the pods now. And it's like, we are here for like one thing and one thing only is to like colonize on a different planet. Why are we trying to like stop on planets that, weren't in our orbit for in regards to what what we were looking for, and this isn't like on any of our maps, so why are we stopping here? So she was like putting her foot down there, but it didn't really go anywhere for that, and that caused the catalyst of everything else happening. But she was like headstrong in that, and that kind of reminded me of Ripley, like in the first one where she was saying how she didn't want to bring the one the one scientist back after he got infected, and with the face hugger and everything. So I definitely like saw that relation in regards to like the characters, but even with from like the last movie how we had Shaw, she wasn't really even given like that energy that kind of Shaw had. And I just kind of felt up in the air about her character the entire time. I knew she was going to make it to the end just because the way that, they set her up, but that was kind of it. Like, of course, she did get rid of the she got rid of two xenomorphs, which that's good. And she was like smart with how she handled those situations. But I didn't really feel as though, yeah, like I didn't like. It was like good that she did that, but also I didn't really feel much of anything once it was done. Like towards her character, it didn't make me like her character anymore. So I'm kind of up in the air about how I feel about Daniels. Um, Mark, your thoughts on Daniels?
for me, she wasn't. They played too many beats that were similar to Shaw, and Prometheus. And then I feel like at the half, well, her husband died, like Shaw, and then she had to take over and lead the crew. She had to try to keep everyone safe. She had to try to fight the alien. And then at the midway point, they tried to turn her into Ripley. And neither she, for me, she never had her own characterization. They were just, yeah, they recycled Ripley and Shaw, and was just like, okay, we'll just give you the best of both, and then there you go. And for me, it didn't work either way.
Yeah, I agree with that. But we have our possible. Well, I don't know if I would say best for last, but we have our aliens, so our xenomorphs and our neomorphs. Mark, where did you have like any opinions on the aliens in this one?
I didn't like the neomorph. It's just it's like he kept it's like they kept dangling things in front of our face. Like, yeah, you have the androids, we have our heroine, we have weird alien planets. We're gonna give you everything that makes an alien movie, except for the alien everyone wants to see. We want to see the xenomorph. It's like and yeah, it kind of looked. The idea, the concept was cool. It was white. It had no face, no eyes. It was cool. But then they did stupid shit with it, like the CGI when it was born looked bad. The scene that Twan and I referenced when it was about to communicate with David, it all looked bad. Like its kill scene looked bad, and then the xenomorph on top of the helicopter that was moving like it was a human, but was like it was a lot. It was going. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Like throw all the aliens away. Throw all the aliens away. Burn the bitches and start new is what I think. Everything but a xenomorph is what it was given, which is the issue.
Everything, everything but a xenomorph. Well, that wraps up our little character list, and we'll be moving on to behind the scenes info that I'll present you guys with today. So, the budget for Alien Covenant was between 97 to 100. Ah, I'm read that over. The budget for Alien Covenant.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, you can do it.
I mean, because I did okay, I can do it. Yeah, yeah. The budget for Alien Covenant was 90 between 97 and 111 million dollars, and with the box office of 241 million dollars. Interesting facts: the original idea behind Alien Covenant was to make a more traditional sequel to Prometheus. In 2012, a draft entitled Alien Paradise Lost was written to stray further away from the original Alien film while building up what Prometheus set up, while building up upon what Prometheus set up. But when but when fans publicly declared the lack of xenomorphs in Prometheus, Scott rerouted and went into a new direction for an Alien trilogy. Wow. Ugh. I wonder how surprised he was and everyone hated this movie more. Uh, the The neomorph designs were specifically patterned after a rare species of deep sea creatures known as goblin sharks. While the neomorph was modeled after goblin sharks, moreover, the physical movement of the xenomorph are more reminiscent of a baboon and a praying mantis. James Franco appeared on screen in photos and a video as Jacob Branson, the original captain of the Covenant and a deceased husband of Daniels. He also appears in a deleted scene that was shot for promotional prologue. Naomi Rapace, who played archaeologist Dr. Elizabeth Shaw in Prometheus, appeared in a short promotional prologue to the Covenant that was set in the period between the two movies, but does not act in the final cut of the movie itself. Though her voice is heard from the planet early in the film, and her image and voice appear later. Some critics' reactions: this currently has a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Guardian gave the film 3 stars out of 5, saying that Alien Covenant is a greatest hit compilations of other Alien movies. The paradox is that though you are intended to recognize these touches, you won't really be impressed unless you happen to have been seeing them all for the first time. The Times of India highlighted Danny McBride's performance as the most surprising given his comedic roots. RogerEbert.com highly praised Alien Covenant, giving it 4 out of 4 stars, and saying that the film's structure, although repeatedly borrowed from other films, was highly entertaining and gave a fresh perspective. He gave them 4 out of 4? I pass. Like, this movie is not good, and it makes me mad because there's so much potential of what it could have been. Like, I don't know what the fans were thinking, but I would have loved to have more explored of like what, cause Prometheus left us with so many questions. And if this movie would have came along and answered them, it would have made Prometheus much more enjoyable on rewatch. So if you didn't like Prometheus and this movie took those dangling threads and like answered them all, and it gave us all the good parts of this movie, it would have made Prometheus better. It would have made it more rewatchable. To watch these back to back, and then we would get the other one. But obviously, no one liked this movie. Obviously, a lot of people passed because we didn't get a follow up to this, and I'm glad we don't because this is trash. That's all I got.
Such positive words from Mark. Elion, did you cash or pass Alien Covenant?
Mark might hate me for this. So it's both. I passed to watch it in theaters, but definitely cashed it to watch it at home because I actually enjoyed it. Unlike knowing how Mark is, like we didn't need to know the origin of the xenomorph. I actually kind of enjoyed knowing how it was made. So like for me, just having this film, I really it was helpful, and I did enjoy it to be honest.
And for myself, I will be passing on Alien Covenant. I really don't believe that I would be coming back to this movie. Um, yeah, just didn't. I just didn't really find it an enjoyable watch overall. Like when I was watching it, the first half, I was fairly like I was fairly bored with what we were given in the first half, and it was not like that intriguing. I feel like in the first one, well, not the first one. I feel like in Prometheus, we were kind of, building to something with the way that the story was going. And while this did build to something and, showing us how, the actual xenomorphs were made with David, basically playing God, it didn't really give much else to the, like, it didn't really give much else to look forward to, I guess you can say. Whereas I felt with the other movies, I was like engaged for most of them, especially the first two. Um, and I honestly think I was a little more engaged in three than I was in this movie, to be quite honest. And that's more so to do with Sigourney Weaver as Ripley than anything. And I think that's one of the main things as well that kind of crutches this movie is the actors that they picked because they didn't really have that charisma that Sigourney Weaver has, and you got Michael Fassbender doing double the work, but it's not really paying off. So I think I will cash on Alien Covenant. Cash. I think I will pass on Alien Covenant.
I was about to say, like, what? After you just
Yeah, I
bashed
would
it?
definitely be passing on Alien Covenant. Well, that has been our show today where we have reviewed Alien Covenant. Please join us next week as we do our ranking of the Alien franchise so far. I know some of you listening might say that we're doing this a bit early with the new film coming out, but please note that we will be reviewing the new movie once it is out, and adding that into our rankings afterwards. So please look forward to that. Thank you and good night.
If you like this episode, please check out the Haddonfield Horror podcast from big series like Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Saw, or our one-off reviews like The Blackening and Hereditary. You can follow Haddonfield Horrors on Instagram and TikTok, where the hosts post updates and mini-reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms and YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. The Haddonfield Horror podcast is produced by Mark Smart,
Maria Perez,
Twan Griffin, and Elian Cordova. Themed by Lethal Injection and edited by Mark Smart.
The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
should we do an intro?